Hey everyone, Yoyston here, and I hope you all are doing well, wherever you are in Middle-earth. Today I come to you all with a different sort of video, but one I feel is ripe in its timing. This year, 2022, on September 2nd, Amazon's Second Age Lord of the Rings show will premiere. Now some fans are hopeful, and others, many others that I have talked to at least, are worried. So today, before we get any trailer or anything like that, I have no idea when a trailer will be released, I wanted to discuss my hopes and fears for the series at large, but especially Season 1. I might come back after Season 1 when we kind of know what everything's about, and make a similar video for Season 2 and so forth, but for now, I just want to discuss my thoughts on Season 1 and the series at large with what we have so far, which is confirmation on Númenor, the Second Age, a few casting choices for Galadriel and others, and a picture of Valinor that Amazon released some months back showing the two trees, Tirion the Noldoran city, and a figure that is rumored to be Finrod Felagund. Besides all of that and a couple other smaller details, we don't have too much confirmed news to go off of yet, but as we continue to get updates, I actually report the news with my friend Royan on our Patreon podcast if you're interested, and my friend Fellowship of Fans always has the best news scoops concerning the show, whose channel is linked in the description below. Now, with all of that said, let's get into my hopes about the show first, followed then by the fears. Just as it was with Peter Jackson's trilogy 20 years ago, we may find that the Amazon show is truly amazing, a good and faithful adaptation of the stories of Tolkien, while also something a little bit original like Jackson's films. Indeed, with the hundreds of millions of dollars going into the first season alone, we know that, financially at least, we should expect a high-quality show with gorgeous sets, music, sound design, visuals, cinematography, writing, acting, and all the rest. However, lots of money does not always equal quality, as it's more about the passion of the creators, which leads me into my next point of hope. In my opinion, so many stories that occur in Tolkien's works before The Hobbit are tales and projects of pure passion, as a lot of this material is difficult to understand and is hidden in the more dense books and obscure notes of Tolkien. I hope that the creators, directors, producers, writers, cast, and crew are all passionate about this project, as passionate, at least, as Peter Jackson, Fran Walsh, Philip Boyens, and everyone else associated with that project were. For this to be an immortal show that lives on as something amazing over the years, the passion has to be in everything. And indeed, just as I have already done here, it has to stand both the test of time and comparisons to Peter Jackson's trilogy of The Lord of the Rings, even though the two will tell different stories. Whenever I go back and watch the 20-year-old films, I see something new each time, especially now in the 4K editions, where many pieces of the background stand out. I noticed the little details that depict just how passionate the filmmakers were about The Lord of the Rings. Sure, the films also earned a lot of money, but there was no guarantee of that, especially at the beginning. They made the movies because they wanted to, because they loved the source material, and they figured it would probably be successful. And so I suppose I hope the same can be said of Amazon concerning the Second Age, and their references to earlier points in the lore, as those stories have so much to love, so much to be passionate about. I mean, how many videos have I alone made on topics related to the Second Age, or the ages that came before? Sure, I don't expect some videos to do as well as videos with topics on things from the late Third Age, topics that people know more about and are more likely to click on. But to me and my list of priorities, the views and money have always come after my passion about all of Tolkien's works. I love all the parts of Tolkien's Legendarium, so I make videos about all the different parts, ages, and moments in history, regardless of how well those videos do. I know that getting their investment back on the show, plus a whole lot more, is the driving incentive of any business, especially Amazon. But I still have hope that they first and foremost view the Lord of the Rings show with passion and love, and if they do, I don't doubt that the money will follow, as it did with the Lord of the Rings trilogy. This is actually another good segue into my next hope for the show, the fact that if done well, this show can be a gateway into the deeper, more difficult, and more obscure parts of Tolkien's works. I have always hoped my videos on the pre-Hobbit events acted in the same way, as a bridge to help people into the more difficult parts of the works that are still very much worth exploring, so they can come to enjoy them as I do. If this show is great, even if many parts of it are original yet faithful to Tolkien and his themes, I don't doubt that people will be reading the Silmarillion and the Unfinished Tales, the sources of many Second Age events, and they'll be doing it a whole lot more. I would love to see more discussions about the pre-Hobbit and pre-Lord of the Rings lore, as there is so much wonderful writing there that is relatively unknown. With that picture of Valinor from the show, I am even more hopeful about this. This show can really be that gateway to the Silmarillion and Unfinished Tales for generations to come, just as Peter Jackson's movies were a huge gateway into both The Lord of the Rings and even The Hobbit, for although the Hobbit trilogy had its issues, they were still enjoyable enough to likely inspire folks to read the smaller, simpler Hobbit story. Now, the Amazon show has a greater task than The Hobbit did, as reading The Hobbit is one thing, and reading something like The Silmarillion is entirely different. But I have hope for the show to do great things, exploring characters and places we know little about, even in the context of Tolkien's works. From The Lord of the Rings Online, I am a huge fan of Nunuiel, Evendim, for instance, and I know that the elves of Galadriel come there in the early Second Age, so I would absolutely love to see moments like that. This show is such an amazing opportunity to see so many other parts of Tolkien's works, and if it succeeds, it may even be a gateway to more TV shows and movies that explore even more aspects of Tolkien's works. There is a lot to be hopeful for. Alright, now the time to discuss my fears for the show has come. And I'll be honest, there are quite a few. I always try to stay positive and optimistic on this channel at large, as I try to tell escapist stories, and I hope my fears here are unfounded and that I'm wrong, but I do want to discuss them. While I am optimistic and hopeful about the TV show at large, I have to acknowledge these fears. First, entertainment recently has been obsessed with rebooting old franchises and intellectual properties as a way to make money based on recognizability solely, rather than providing new material with thought-provoking content. I can point to many examples over the last 10 years of revivals that did not pan out too well, and examples that even feel a little bit hollow. However, there were a few reboots or references to older movies that did work for me, as the writers recognized the importance both of the story they were telling and the older story they needed to respect. I hope it is the latter with the Amazon show, but I'm afraid that even though they aren't doing a retelling of The Lord of the Rings itself, they might be trying to reboot the franchise and the world of Middle-earth as a way to make money with a well-known IP, which gets into another fear of mine. Perhaps Amazon gives us a name without The Lord of the Rings in the title, but I really doubt it. They will surely want to utilize the name recognition of the intellectual property, and have some mental association for viewers with Peter Jackson's trilogy. And while that by itself doesn't really bother me, and I understand the need for this company to make money, it may point to a larger issue. With the entire Second Age to explore, I really hope they don't just explore the end of it. I hope they take their time building their own story and world building of Middle-earth and Númenor during the early, middle, and late Second Age. Because if they're going to do the Second Age, they should do it right, before getting to the War of the Last Alliance and the characters we know about from the Peter Jackson trilogy, like Isildur, for instance. I want those episodes with Tar Miniatur and Gil-galad. I want to spend time with Celebrimbor in Eregion before and during the War of the Elves and Sauron, Durin the Third in Khazad-dûm, and Aldarion the Mariner on the high seas. I would love to see Tar Palantir trying to reverse the corruption of Númenor and save his people, but I'm worried that they will skip through content just to get to the more recognizable characters, settings, and plotlines, or that they don't even have the rights to all of these stories. In the same vein, I'm hoping that this does not feel like not enough butter over too much bread, as there are multiple seasons planned for this show, so hopefully they take their time exploring the Second Age, rather than trying to make 5 seasons out of the end of the Age, which is the most recognizable part of the Age for many casual fans. Now, don't get me wrong, I do definitely want to see the end of the Second Age and all of these incredible moments, but I want to see them at their full fruition, with proper character building and motivation and world building behind all of these stories, rather than just that story being extrapolated over 5 seasons long. Again, this is such a great opportunity to take so many stories and share them with the world. Now, I think they would really only do this if money is just their main priority, and really one of their sole priorities. As just as a lot of money going into the show gives me hope about production quality, it also gives me fear that this show will be very geared towards using the intellectual property to churn out lots of money. I, of course, hope the show is fantastic and is full of passion. Thus, if these premises are true, that return on investment should be amazing, but more money, more problems. Will the show's main and only major priority be about that return on investment? I hope not. And with money comes politics. And I won't speak too much to this as to not ignite a civil war in the comments, but any politics of any side being interjected into the show, as well as any sex, nudity, gratuitous violence, or really any big things that deviate the show from Tolkien's works and themes, will only prove to be detrimental for the show. Tolkien hated allegory and built his works to be escapist, so let's just leave it at that. The show shouldn't be trying to uphold any ideologies or making allegorical political statements. It should be escapism, just like Tolkien would have wanted. But in a time where everything is political, I have to say that I'm worried about that. I've talked about it a lot on different live streams and things, but I did study politics in college, and throughout my time in college, Tolkien was such a great escape from studying that rather cynical subject matter. And so, as a political science major, I definitely don't want to see politics in The Lord of the Rings. I can think of nothing that would faster ruin the Amazon show than if they did put politics in it. Now, hand in hand with making the show political would be interjecting themes or characterizations that just don't make sense for our world, stories, and characters. When I see Elrond, I want to see Elrond as Tolkien wrote him. Sure, there will be some differences, but overall I want to know that that character is that character, and so forth. I know when I hear Howard Shore and Bear McCreary's new score for the show, I will feel like I'm in Middle-earth. I have no fears about that music, and I hope for the same kind of immersion from the characters and the stories and the settings, which do require an adherence to the source material. I know there will be quite a few original characters written for the show that were not in the books, which hopefully should be fine, as long as they fit with the themes of Tolkien's world. As otherwise, it could be a really harsh contrast between well-written Tolkienian characters with Tolkien themes and underlying source material, and the original characters, which were meant to only serve a function in the show itself. But with adherence to Tolkien's stories and references back to the source material, I'm really hoping that this fear, in particular, is unfounded, and it all at least feels like Middle-earth, like Lord of the Rings, like the Second Age, and like the stories Tolkien told. And ultimately, these are my hopes and fears with Lord of the Rings on Prime. I hope we get a trailer or something soon that proves my hopes and disproves my fears. I really, really want to like this show and always have, and I want to sing its praises on my channel, but we will see. Regardless if the show turns out as we hope or not, I will be here to discuss it when it does come out. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts about all of this in the comments below. Perhaps some of you may be able to dissuade me from these fears and make me even more hopeful for the show. Overall, I choose to take the optimistic side and stay hopeful, for I do not have enough reason to not be. If you liked this video, please hit that like button and share this with a friend. Thanks to our Valar tier patrons for making all of this possible: Adrian De la Torre, Chris Ortner, Kyle Wetzel, Peter Sheppard, Jonathan Putnam, Mark Kralick, Blair Scouten, Merten, John Hume, Jennifer Wood, Sam McBee, Matt Sibbach, Elizabeth Calvert, Maz Gibs, Ben Gardner, Condar, Rhys Jenkins, Ádám Petrlik, Kuzan, Brandon Glidden, and Molly Sullivan. Thank you so much, and thanks to all of our patrons, it really means a lot to me. Please subscribe and hit that bell button to join the Men of the West and all of the free peoples today, and I'll see you all again on Sunday with that video on the top 10 most important moments in the history of Middle-earth. You all are the best, my friends. Thank you all so much for joining me on this adventure. Until the next one.